So today we're talking about animation in America. Animation is a very popular media. It's used to advertise products and it's also mainly used for entertainment. But it's not just big corporations making movies every year like Disney and Pixar. There's freelance artists opening up every single day making their animation. This is possible through YouTube. But with many of the headquarters of animation companies like Pixar, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon being based in America, where did it all start? James Stewart Blackton. J. Stewart Blackton is said to be the first person in America to make an animation. This animation can be seen in the film Enchanted Drawings. In this film, Blackton is seen drawing a face, and then he gives it various things, to which the face reacts. Now, this isn't real animation, but it did get the ball rolling in America. Next is Amelie Cole. Cole is credited for making Phantasmagree. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it was made in 1908, and it actually had animation in it, with no real people in it. And I'm at a loss of words to describe what this animation is, so just watch. This wasn't actually made in America. It was made in France and shown in America, in Fort Lee, New York in 1912. But the reason it's a big deal is because there was a technique used in this animation that has not been seen before. What Cole did, he drew every single frame by frame. And then, he put the frames onto negative film. This technique would spread to the rest of America. Next is Felix the Cat. Now, Felix the Cat was created in 1919 by Otto Mesmer in the short film Feline Follies. This is a fully animated short, and it was distributed by Paramount Studios. Felix the Cat was so popular and became the first character to be merchandised. Not only that, Felix also became one of the most recognized characters in film history. This next chapter is called The Rise of Disney. In 1920 to 1922, the famous Walter Elias Disney started to practice animation while working at a cutout animation company. Now, cutout animation is seen in the show South Park. Now, what Disney was practicing was actual animation. Now, as he was practicing animation, he made and sold his animation cartoon called Newman Laugh-O-Grams to a theater in 1921. While this animation is not impressive, this was only the start of his creations. Like in 1927, when he would try to make a character similar to Felix the Cat, and so he made Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. But later on, Disney would lose the rights to Oswald. After Disney lost the rights to Oswald, he would make an animation short called Steamboat Willie. And this short is starring one of the most famous characters in cartoon history, Mickey Mouse. This short was made in 1928, and by this time, Disney had no longer just been Disney. He had his own fully functioning animation company. And then, in 1932, Disney would work with Technicolor to make the first fully colored cartoon, called Flowers and Trees. While this is impressive, it wouldn't stay a just Disney technique forever. By 1935, it was an industry standard. Then, in December of 1937, America would get its first fully colored and sound animation feature film. This is, of course, Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. This was a huge worldwide success. There's a reason I said earlier this is the rise of Disney. But, of course, Disney would also have rivals. And while Disney was rising, other animation studios were opening and creating new characters and cartoons. One popular company was Warner Bros. The Warner Brothers were producing a lot of cartoons like Merry Melodies and most well-known, Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies would both come out, and it would debut famous characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and Elmer Fudd at the start of 1930. And what Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies had over Disney was a cast of characters rather than just one mouse. Disney would respond to this by making his own cast of characters. From 1928 to 1934, Disney would add Minnie Mouse, Pluto, Goofy, and finally Donald Duck to his characters. And also in the 1930s, other famous characters would be made too, like Betty Boop and Popeye. Then later on, the first cartoon would air on television called Willie the Worm by Chad Grothkampf. I couldn't find anything on the original broadcast, but what I could find was the second cartoon aired on television, and it's, of course, Disney's Donald's Cousin Gus in 1939. So, as you might have guessed, we now have reached the 1940s. And you know what happened here? That's right. Donald Duck's significant other, Daisy Duck, is created. Also, World War II, I guess. And with war comes propaganda, and you better believe there was a lot of cartoon propaganda. Speaking of, Donald Duck was in his own type of propaganda. But also by this time, there were a lot of people making animations, and a lot of people made propaganda with characters a lot of people knew. And in America, there was a character created in 1943 by Frank Capra called Private Snafu. This was created solely for the purpose of propaganda, and after the series ended in 1945 with the war, the character was never seen again. Looney Tunes also got in on the propaganda, and this can be seen in the short Scrap Happy Daffy. There is way too much animated wartime propaganda to show here, so this is just a handful of what was there. Now these next few things we're going to speed through to save on time. Animation would appear on television on one big daily show called The Small Fry Club in 1948 by the Do Mount Network. This would open the opportunity for cartoons to be on TV rather than just the theater. This would start with a just-for-TV animated series called The Adventures of Powwow in 1949. In the 1950s, animated cartoons weren't as good as the older cartoons. Cartoons now were just made fast and cheap. But children don't really care about quality, they just wanted cartoons. So this eventually led to the creation of Saturday morning cartoons. In 1959, Total Television was created to promote General Mills products with the original character in Cocoa Puffs commercial. And then in the 1960s, there was a lot of cartoons being made, and this was a huge break for cartoons. It seems like everybody was dipping their toes in animation. There was DC and Marvel animated comic adaptations. Even the Beatles got into this. This is also where a lot of popular shows got their start, like the Flintstones, the Jetsons, the Yogi Bear Show, and Where Are You, Scooby-Doo? By the late 1960s and early 1970s, cartoons were showing up less and less in theaters until they completely disappeared. In 1968, Motion Picture Association of American Film Rating System is created, and as the name implies, it rates movies from a G to R rating. And in 1972, Felix the Cat is the first animated movie to receive an X rating. In 1974, animation and music videos is made with Roger Glover's Love Is All. In 1981, MTV is created, and this really opens the opportunity for even more animated music videos. Early 1980s is the low point of animation in the US. These cartoons were based off toys and could easily be seen as a commercial rather than a cartoon. These consist of My Little Pony, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. And in 1985, the failure of the Disney movie Black Cauldron was now a new low. By this time, Disney is no longer rising. In the late 80s, animation would make a 180 with many hits like The Land Before Time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and, in 1987, The Simpsons. Disney would also bring it back with the release of The Little Mermaid, which Disney and Pixar worked together to create the computer animation production system for some parts of that movie. Now we're in the 90s. Channels were created just for cartoons, like Nickelodeon, Disney, and Cartoon Network, and with these channels came a lot of cartoons, like Ed, Edd and Eddy, Ren and Stimpy, Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Lab, and the Powerpuff Girls. There were also adult-oriented shows too, like The Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, King of the Hill, and Futurama. There were many more cartoons, but these are just a handful. But that's not the only thing that happened in the 90s. In 1995, Pixar released its own fully 3D computer animated movie called Toy Story. Pixar was, and still is to this day, at the top of 3D animation, teaming up with the company Disney to make one of the biggest animation studios ever. Then in 2005, YouTube was created, and by 2008, it became really popular, giving anybody from the general public the means to become famous. And for the first time ever, giving people not in the industry a place to show their work to the World Wide Web. And, of course, this includes animation. So many animators and so much animation is on YouTube, and it shows that animation is still truly alive. Now, you're up to date on history of animation. But one sad thing about this is that no matter how popular something is, some of it will be lost to time. Even Disney has lost animations, so a lot of the information is lost. But for this I showed whatever I could. So now you are up to date. Animation is a relatively very new thing, and like I said earlier, with YouTube, more and more people are brought to light with their animation skills, and we are still making strides in animation today.